and welcome to Festival Speaks. Today is Thursday, March 11th, and this is a bonus episode. So if you're looking for a regular woolly chatty episode, this isn't it. You can go back and just look for a regular numbered episode. But this is going to be a bonus episode all about my Otis overalls. Yes! So thanks to folks who are patrons of the podcast, whether that's via Ko-Fi or PayPal or Patreon, I'm occasionally able to put out these bonus episodes, and this one is going to be all about my recently sewn Otis overalls, which is a pattern that's been put out by Sew Liberated. So I was able to test sew these overalls, and I love them. So let me begin by saying that this podcast, this vlog, this wacky thing I do, has not been endorsed by Sew Liberated. It has not been sanctioned by Sew Liberated. It has been in no way encouraged by Sew Liberated. So let's just start with that information. They are putting out lots of amazing blog posts all about fabric choices, different hacks, different techniques for finishing, and all of that good information. So I recommend that you check out their blog. You can find links to it in their pattern pages if you are curious. And I definitely recommend their resources there. But this might just be a place of encouragement, alternate source, or, if you just want to visit with me while you're folding your laundry. I feel you. So I probably can't get my full length self in because the limits of time and space are here. But I will put in a picture in a moment, and then I will come back to you in a sitting and comfortable format, and we can talk more. So let's start. First of all, big thank yous to the folks over at Sew Liberated. I had a great test sewing experience with them. They were lovely. The other test sewers, amazing. It's wonderful to work with makers. And it's so fun to work with sewists because I've not really worked with other sewists very much. I did a test sew with Jacqueline Cieslak on her Wolfwork sewing pattern, which is coming out soonly. So I'll do a little podcast or a little episode about that as well. But it's fun to work with folks in a different environment with different craft because it's just it's a different skill set, which is always fun. But it just creates a different approach to making, which is just always fun. So they bring a different approach, a different mindset, a different skill set. It's just a great experience. So big thanks to those folks. Big thanks to Instagram folks. It was literal craft crowd surfing, y'all. So if you send out love on Instagram, I felt it. All day yesterday. It's like your little hands were lifting up my round Otis overall butt self. And just what? It was super great. And let me tell you, I had a lovely day just going out and doing my errands the other day. Enjoyed wearing my overalls so much in the world. But then y'all saw them and I was just in my house, not wearing a bra, not even wearing my overalls, and I got to feel the love from you. It was amazing. So thank you. You also inspired me to actually get off my duff and do this episode. So y'all can send them psychic thanks as well. Ding! So then I would like to do an awkward thing for myself, and I appreciate your grace while I do it. I would like to advocate for myself for just a moment. I usually do these episodes in a very casual and I hope fun way. But I do try to share with you lots of knowledge and learning. I do think about them a lot and try to give of you what I have. And so sometimes I think that we in our culture think about learning as this very formal thing that can only happen in this very formal, structured way. And so sometimes we don't appreciate it when it doesn't look like that. And so I would just challenge you to just challenge that notion. So whether it's me or whether it's a different pattern writer or if it's a different podcaster or if it's a different, whoever it is, I would just challenge you to think about the knowledge that you're receiving, the art that you're receiving, the entertainment that you're receiving, and just challenge the notions of what that looks like and how we have traditionally valued it. And so it's hard for me to say that, but I do think that what I do has value. And if you would agree, I would very much appreciate it if you could drop a little tip in the tip jar. You can do that via Ko-Fi, via Patreon, via PayPal. There's links in my link tree. You can find them on the drop-down menu in the YouTube. Thank you. Moving on. Okay. Oh, in the same vein, if you don't like how I present this information, you don't have to tell me. Thanks. Okay, let's talk about these overalls. Okay, slight backstory. No, I'll save that for the end. That way, if you don't know me from Adam and you don't care, you don't have to listen. Okay, so these are the Otis overalls. As I said, I highly recommend this pattern if you're looking to make some overalls. It's got a pretty good size range. I think it's like 0 to 34. I actually am technically outside the range. I am a 63-inch hip, and it goes up to a 61-inch hip. But as you could see probably in that video, I didn't stick I have plenty of room. So if you're on that fence or like you're a little bit above it, I recommend that you give them I hate to say that because that means you're going to spend dollars, but I was able to fit in them comfortably without adjustments. That was my experience. If you are a person that has not been successful in making pants for yourself, I highly recommend Moon It and Broad. They are an awesome pattern company made for fat people, by fat people. And if you don't fit in their size range, if you're above their size range, they will grade up for you because they are badass ladies. And I love them. That said, I have comfortably fit in these overalls and dig them quite a lot. Okay, so that's sizing. But yes, enjoyable. The pattern I felt was very clear. My sewing experience is that I don't have a ton of it, especially garment. I do have a lot of familiarity with craft sewing. Well, I'm very comfortable with craft sewing. But I don't have a ton of garment sewing experience. For example, these overalls require a flat felled seam, and I had never done one before. So while I do not believe that they would be suitable for an absolute beginner, you know what? If you're adventurous, you can do anything. There's YouTube. If you're motivated and you're adventurous, you can do anything. But certainly they are accessible. The pattern is written very clearly. It's not like an old school, let's say McCall's. I'm not picking on McCall's specifically, but it's not one of those old school big four patterns where you have limited directions. Okay, the folks at Sew Liberated obviously have done test sewing where they have had people follow the pattern. They've asked for clarification. Excuse excuse me, they're nicely written patterns. They have photos, they have clarification, they have, there is support there. I would feel comfortable recommending them to you. It's a great pattern. The other thing I should mention about this pattern is it's finished beautifully. Okay, so that's the other reason I feel like I can confidently recommend this pattern. I feel like, especially as a knitter, again, that's where my kind of wheelhouse is. If you've never watched my podcast before and the yarn behind you didn't give you that information, I certainly have looked at many patterns before, knitting patterns, and like the pattern photo, like on the designer's pattern, is gorgeous, right? It's beautiful, and you're like, oh, and then you might go to look at folks. This happens quite a bit, I think, maybe more so with like stuffed animals, right? Or like stuffies or like three-dimensional objects. You look at the designer's picture and you're like, oh, that's beautiful, I love it. And then you might go to look at users' photos or people who've knit the project, and you're like, oh, there is a very wide variety of finished objects. Everywhere from like, yes, that looks very similar to the designers, like, maybe different colors or different yarn, or, maybe even a different size, like they did a different gauge of yarn or something, all the way to like, ooh, I would not have thought that was the same pattern. Do you know what I mean? And so sometimes that is just up to user error. Like, sometimes we just, sometimes we decide that we don't want to do it the way the pattern suggests, or we just didn't have the same thing, all recipes, Oh, I rate this recipe 1 star. I substituted 37 things and it didn't come out the right way. Okay, it's not that. But sometimes it is literally a design issue, right? That is not the case here. I feel like the way this pattern is written, you will get a well-finished object. You are given good fabric suggestions. You're given good finishing suggestions. I think you're going to get something that you like when you're finished. The inside of your garment is going to look as beautiful as the outside. You might just strip down at your sewing guild and just show them. You can take your bib down easily. There's lots of beautiful finishing there. And you can just flash, especially if you do the lining in a different fabric. You might just feel inspired to do a little pop and just show folks. Just saying. So that's exciting. And going along with that, you never need a serger, but it's not written that you would even be required to have any sort of specialized finishing tools. I completed my entire garment on a straight line machine, so I didn't need to zigzag anything. I have a commercial machine, but it only does straight line. So you don't need any sort of special finishing. You don't need a buttonholer. You don't need anything like that. You just need a straight line machine. And with that said, if you have the patience of Job, you can hand sew this whole thing yourself. That is slow fashion. So what else? Oh, and speaking of slow fashion, this is not a fast project. And coming from a knitter's perspective, I'm like really okay with that. It was a little bit of a crunch for me just because I had a window that I was test sewing in. But I did enjoy it. And I certainly will, I look forward to making myself another pair, because especially as a fat sewist, and especially when I'm dealing with pants, I want to feel confident that they are going to be durable. When you're looking at investing in, let's say, like 4 yards of fabric, that's probably not going to be a cheap endeavor for most folks. Even in a canvas that I, might dye myself or something, for me, that's not an inexpensive investment. So I would like to make sure that that's going to be something that's going to last me, that's going to be durable. and that I don't have to worry about, like, you know, squatting down to pick up a penny, because, you know, I need to be able to afford more fabric, on the street and worry about ripping out my seams. So I feel very confident that I can bend and squat and kick, and quite frankly, you're going to want to do all those things in these overalls, because that baggy leg just makes you want to, like, move in there, because you kind of feel like you're having a secret dance party inside your pants. And I think it makes you want to do that. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So for me, the slow aspect is enjoyable, but it might not be for everybody. You know, it may not be your jam, and I totally get it. You know, I have the luxury of working from home, and I have a sewing machine that is out all the time. So, like, that is not an obstacle for me completing a project. You know, like if I had to put everything away every night and get it out every day, if I had little people that I needed to make sure weren't going to put a stick pin in my mouth, you know, that would change my perspective quite a bit. But for me, it was a very enjoyable process. But it is a slower process. Okay. Okay, so that's I recommend this pattern, and that's you know, many reasons that I do. My general tips for this project are, you're not gonna like this one. Make muslin. Oh, it doesn't have to be a useless muslin. Like, you could totally make a wearable muslin, you know? Go to Goodwill, buy a cool old bed sheet. Okay, I say this as I do as I say, not as I do, because I hate going to Goodwill. But, you know, if you got a cool old bed sheet, and, you know, maybe it's even an old flannel bed sheet, you know, whatever. You can make a wearable muslin out of it. You don't have to do the flat felled seams. You know, I believe on Sew Liberated, yes, they did. They have a blog post about how you can do the overalls if you want to do serged seams, or I don't know if they do one about French seams. But anyway, they have that option because, you know, for some folks, their hand strength is not such, or, you know, it's a little bit harder on your eyes to do the flat felled seams, or for whatever reason, you don't want to do the flat felled seams. For example, I did not do flat felled seams when I did my muslin. I just did 5/8 inch regular seams and just tried that dude on. Okay, but I do really recommend. I know you don't want to hear it, but just do the muslin. Ooh, right? Okay, this is Gus. If you're not familiar, he's annoying. I'm sorry, but he is very cute and he has a snaggletooth. So come on. But yeah, I recommend the muslin, and get this, especially if you're a fatty. It's a reality check, ladies and gents. Okay. But especially if you're a fatty, because our bodies change, like percentage wise with proportions and things like that. They change at faster rates. And that's just a thing. You know, or there's the potential for a faster rate of change, I guess. Not necessarily that they do, but there is the potential for a faster rate of change. So the likelihood that we will need to make adjustments is greater. And also we're investing more money often. Now, I think in this one, actually, there's not that much of a difference in the fabric requirements for the sizes. But, you know, and the reason I suggest that especially is because this is a time-consuming project with, again, the extra finishing details and what have you. And it's not a project that is easy to make adjustments on after the fact, because it has facings and things like that that make it a little bit more difficult to make those adjustments. Also, like, one of the main things that you may need to make an adjustment on is, especially for me, so I'm only speaking as for myself, but one thing you may need to make an adjustment on is the rise. Again, especially as a fat person, that's often a place that's troublesome in overalls, right? Okay. And that is definitely not something that you can easily do after the fact, right? Like, you can't just sneak a dart into your rise. I mean, you can, you know, you do you, but I would not want to, right? So I'll make a muslin, okay. 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 For example, I did not even complete my muslin because I was on time crunch. So I made the muslin just for like the pants part essentially, and I forgot that there's like an extra casing in the back waist for the drawstring and what have you. And so I put on the pants and thought, oh, I'm going to need some extra room in the back rise. And quite frankly, that's often something I need because I have a very like round butt that's shelf-like in some ways. And so I thought, oh, I need a little extra room in that rise. I'll add a little extra room. And again, I used actual muslin versus the reality of the canvas that I ultimately used. And so what happened is when I actually made the finished garment, I was like, oh, I actually did not need that extra in the rise. In fact, could have done with less in the front rise and just had the pattern as it was in the rear rise. Now, they're totally fine for me and they're very wearable. But the next time I do them, I will make that slight change. So that's just the reality, right? So I do make a muslin. My knitters, guess what? Okay. General tips. Take your time. Right. You know you want them. You know you want them. Just pretend they're coming via USPS and they're stuck in that Cincinnati hub and you gotta wait. You just have to wait. Take your time. You want them to be lovely forever. Take your time, or not, you do you. But yeah, take your time. I'm just saying. Okay. Also, yes, it's just not a speedy little thing, you know. You can do if you need to get a project under your belt, I understand. Do a Moon and Broad Torrance box top. Get it done. Get yourself a little top. Just get yourself something nice. Get it done, and then sew yourself some slow overalls. I understand. Sometimes you just gotta do it. Okay, so that's like my general rules of thumb. Okay. Again, also check out the much more extensive, made for by the people who designed the pattern and are making money from it, Sew Liberated blog. Ding! Okay, so now about the fabric that I used. I used a 10-ounce cotton duck made by Premier Prints. It was an undyed, natural, it was not a PFD prepared for dye. I think it's just like natural. So I did dye it with RIT dye. If you look on the internet, everybody loves to hate on some RIT dye, and I get it. It's not the end-all be-all of dyes. But the lovely thing about it is that you can drive 4 minutes if you live in a city and get some. And sometimes it's on sale when you do that. And the other great thing about RIT dye is if you go to RIT.com, I think it's literally RIT.com, they have a very extensive color mixing chart, which is sadly something that's missing from what I can tell for like your, is it Procyon? I don't know how you say that. Reactive dyes. So if you go to RIT.com, there is a huge color chart. I mean, it's got to have like 200-300 colors on it, and it'll tell you the proportions that you need of their like bottled dyes or their powdered dyes. I mean, it's written for the bottled dyes, but they have a converter thing for the powdered dyes. It'll tell you what proportion you need and for what weight of dry goods. It just could not be easier. So that's what I used. I can't tell you for sure like the longevity of this project. What I would recommend is if you're going to use RIT dye, or really if you're just going to use any kind of dye that you're going to do at home yourself, is that you use cotton thread. And that is a thing I know by my own mistake. Because if you use nylon thread, which I typically love to use, I do not lie, or not nylon thread, but just whatever, regular poly thread. Because it's strong and I use it typically for my regular production sewing, so it's already set up on the machine. But the reality is it will not dye when you, if you need to like go back and re-dye your fabric, like your garment after it's sewn, then that thread will not dye and it will look odd. So use cotton thread. That's my tip. They do, RIT does make a, what do they call it? It's in like a purple bottle and it's called Color Stay Dye Fixative. So that is something that you can use if you want to try to increase the longevity of your dyed garment. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's going to be maybe a little bit more color fast, maybe a little bit more long lived, if you plan on washing your garment a lot, or if you regularly want to wash in hot water, Dharma Trading is a great resource for reactive dyes that are said to have a longer life. I did just wash or dye mine in the washing machine. I had no trouble with it staining my washing machine, but to be honest with you, my washing machine's 20 years old, so I mean, maybe there's some flecks on there. I didn't look that close. I don't really care. I have only washed my overalls once since then. I did wash them by themselves, but I did leave a Kleenex in the pocket, and the Kleenex was not dyed. So that seems like a good indication. But I do always wash in cold water, and I line dry almost everything. So. Oh, and I did boil the water that I used in my washing machine. Or at least I supplemented it with boiled water. Does that make sense? I did dye my fabric before I made my overalls. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. I just did. Because I was like, I didn't have my pattern yet and I wanted to get started. That's why. I was like, why did I do that? That's why. Let me discuss. Dyeing like 4 yards of 60-inch wide canvas is not an easy feat. I really did try to dye it on the stovetop because I do believe dyeing with heat is the way to go, but it would not fit in the biggest kettle I had, which is like a big like canning kettle, but it wouldn't fit. So yeah, so that's the fabric that I used. So the pros about the fabric that I used are it's a fairly affordable fabric. It's pretty predictable, you know, like it's gonna be in stock probably forever. It's like one of those like always there. It's not like a print that's going to go out or, you know, you don't have to rush out and get it now. It's going to just be there forever. It seems like it's going to be pretty durable. It is a duck canvas, but it's not rough at all. It doesn't feel... So this, because they're overalls, right? The rise is going to come down a little bit. And if you have chafing issues, which a lot of my fat brethren do, you know, that's something to be very aware of, especially if we're going to use like a linen or anything that's scratchy. You know your body better than I do, but that's something to kind of keep in your brain pan about your fabric choice. If you're going to pick something that's going to be real stiff or scratchy or whatever, you know your skin. I have gone mermaid. Like I'm a fat lady that's fat enough that my legs are just mermaidy. And so I really only move below my mermaid joint. So I don't chafe anymore really, generally. Ding. Drawbacks. I would not necessarily recommend this fabric. I would not tell you not to use it. It is a little bit difficult to do the flat felled seams if your fabric is this heavy, okay? It's not, I mean, obviously I did it. And it's my first, they are my first flat felled seams. So the reason I say it's a little bit more difficult is because I did some practice on some just like Essex, Kaufman Essex, linen Essex stuff. And that was much easier, like on my hands and on the like ironing, and like it just laid down nice and easy. This was not like hard. It was just, it took a little bit more attention. I had to go a little slower, you know, that kind of thing. I think if I were going to use this fabric or like a fabric that is this heavy again, the flat felled seams all have a 5/8 seam allowance. I think I would just go up to the 3/4. I have enough room that I could get away with that extra total 1/4 inch, so 1/8 on each side, I think I would just go up to the 3/4. I think that little, I mean, I know that doesn't sound like much, but really that just like that extra little bit would probably be enough to feel like you had a little bit extra wiggle room to account for like that extra thickness in folding things over. Oh, and definitely, and it says this in the pattern, but definitely if you're going to use a fabric this heavy, do use something lighter on your facings, your straps, you know, your bib facing, your, especially like your tie facing. I would not want to have 2 canvas weights. Oh, and I didn't write this down, but, and also if you're making your ties, the pattern has it written that you make a casing and then you turn it inside out. When you have this canvas, I literally think that's actually impossible. So just make like a bias tape, essentially like a double fold, like you just fold the edges in and then fold it in half and then just sew it that way. If you're really concerned about it looking super tidy, I have, you can use like those bias tape makers that look like this. In fact, I think this is the one I might have used. This is an 18. Yeah, this is the one I use, which is an 18. I mean, I just happen to have it because I have several of them. And this worked a treat. It worked just perfectly for my ties. And it made it very neat, much neater than I would have done it by hand. So that's the only downsides to the heavier fabric. But like I love how they kind of like accentuate the like roundness of the leg. I enjoy that they're soft and like they have like a little bit of a nap to the surface. The fabric does, it's not napped, but it has, I think this dyeing process just gives it slight, I don't know if it's the heat or what have you, but it just gives it slightly, I love that texture and I love the dyed, just kind of gives it enough depth. There is one spot that's a little redder right on my butt, but whatever. Go ahead and look at it, it's fine. I don't blame you. But other options, I think I want a pair that's made of cotton ripstop because I like that fabric quite a bit for summertime. You can find it not nylon ripstop because that's not going to breathe. And also, it's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to be very swishy. But there's 100% cotton ripstop. And I have a pair of Moon and Brown pants made out of it that I love quite a bit. And that's I think that would be a great option for these. And you could self-line with that. It would be thin enough. So I want to make a pair out of those. That's a good option, I think. Definitely, of course, like a mid-weight, like a 5 to 7 ounce, might be a little heavy, 5-7 ounce linen. I think it'd be fun to do one out of like pinwheel corduroy. One of the testers had this pinwheel that almost like had like a quilted texture to it. I'm gonna stop you for just a second. So I think they would look super cute in a pinwheel corduroy. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I want to make quilted ones, even if it's like just a solid that I then quilt. Wouldn't that be cute? I think that needs to be done for next winter. Or, tomorrow. Okay. So then the next thing we're going to talk about is like my personal experience with the pattern. So this will probably speak more to fat folks, but you might find it helpful if you're not a fatty. Okay. So backstory. Okay, so I was so excited when I saw this pattern. And then So Liberated put on her post that she was looking for test sewers for size 28 to 32. And I was just like, hi. That's literally my fat lady civic duty. And so I, of course, was immediately like, I can help. And I was very excited that she picked me. Because, hi, I was in high school in the late 90s in Ohio. That does matter because we got everything late. But so it was like grunge-ish. right? And so overalls were a big deal. But Fatty McFatterson, like I was basically, I mean, I'm sure I was actually thinner in high school. Like I was probably like only 300 pounds instead of 350 pounds, but like I had reached terminal fatness. So like I was just fat. So like, but like my options were always like Big Smith overalls or like Key overalls. I totally had Key railroad stripe overalls. But anyway, to get them to fit my butt, they were always like, the crotch was always like down to my knees, right? And like that was before I had achieved mermaid status. So yes, I was smaller. And so like, hi, there was chafing. So you had to be like, oh. So anyway, so like there was like a whole fit issue, right? Like you would have to like try to like pull them up as far as you could. But then like, so you would like shorten the straps, like to pull the straps back. And then I would like sew like stars or something on the straps to keep them short as I could. And then I would also have to like, cause then the bib would be like this wide, right? So I would like fold the bib under and like embroider along the bib. And like, I pretend like I only did this in high school. There's totally pairs upstairs that are just like this that I wore like 2 years ago. Or, 7 days ago before I made these. So like you fold the bib under so that it doesn't like stick way out. So you fold the bib under and like do a little bit of embroidery along it or just safety pin it, whatever, depending how punk you're feeling that day. So that it doesn't stay. Right? So do all those things and modify them so that they fit a little bit better. You hack like 10 inches off the legs because when you get them in like the size 60 or whatever for your butt, they're never hemmed. So there was like 36-inch inseam. Plus the like 54-inch drop crotch or whatever. There's like 97 inches of overalls. So like overalls are just like part of who I am. And in fact, I'm constantly trying to get my super skinny husband to wear overalls because I think he'd be so cute in them. He just won't wear them. He has like one pair that he occasionally wears. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I just love overalls. Love them. But because it's like so hard to find overalls to fit, right? Because again, like it's like jeans times 20. Like it's hard enough to find jeans that fit. Like, but overalls? Okay. So when I go to try to find jeans, by the way, jeans are next. Well, maybe they're not next, but they're high on the list. Muna and Broad has the nice jeans. They're high on my list. But so this is the thing, like, okay, so when I go to try to find jeans that fit, there are at least like, between like the several fat lady stores that I can go buy at and the several fat lady things that I can get mailed to me, at least I might have like 10 jean options. Like if I'm willing to put all of them on my credit card and return 9 of them, okay? Maybe I could scrounge up like 10 options at any one time to choose from. But at overalls, I am going to be wicked lucky to find one. Okay, so it's like just the odds are not in my favor that those are going to fit, right? Like they're just not. They're not in my favor. Okay, so I have limited options already. But then it's compounded by the fact that it's both a bottom and a top that need to fit. Now, clearly the top's not like a shirt, but there is a thing, and it does matter because when this part is too big, it like gapes and it like flips, this part bunches up, and then like it looks less cute because it like comes out way over your boobs and just like is less cute. Okay, so it's a thing. Okay, so it's just like statistically, like it's more complicated to find overalls that fit. Okay. And again, it's a thing. Okay, it's like the struggle, y'all. But I love overalls. and they're super cute. I don't really know where this was going, but it's just amazing to have something that you want. It's really exciting. It's really exciting to get to have something you want and not just something that will do. You know? It's exciting. It makes you feel like a kid. And in fact, the Moon and the Bra, they were talking about, I think Layla was talking about, that, you know, there is a thing that happens when you start sewing, I think, especially as a fat sewist, that you sometimes do accumulate a lot of clothing because it is like you are a teenager. It is like, for many of us, it's the first time that you kind of get to discover what your own style is, because it's the first time that you've been able to do something beyond the very limited options that you've been given. Like, you know, right? Like, when I was developing style, the only options I had was Lane Bryant. Like, that was the only option I had, because they didn't have any other things when I was a teen and a college kid. So, you know, like, there becomes this like new adolescence that can kind of happen for sewists, especially fat sewists. So I feel like there is that like, and I feel like that can happen, like, where you're like, wait, I don't know how to put things together. You have to like figure out like your colors and like limit the palette and like, you know, like, because I'm like, oh, is this what like straight sized people actually go through? Because like you can, like, you have that many options that like, oh, you could just choose all of these different things, and so your life is not the sonnet. Like, you gotta figure that out. Oh, okay, like, that's a new thing I gotta figure out. Okay, so, but it's exciting at the same time, right? So while this particular pair of oils is not 100% perfect, there is so much potential for them to be perfect that I'm very excited about it. Okay, so let's talk about the things that maybe aren't perfect, but there's potential for perfection in. Okay. So, number one. Okay, so this might be good for everybody. Let's talk about mobility and straps and stuff. So let me put in a little like clippy clip here. Okay, and then advice from a fat lady about how to take your pants off. So, your natural inclination might be to take your straps off and like shimmy them over your hips. Okay, don't do that. You're gonna snap your straps. Oh, sorry, I don't even know how to get my own pants off. Okay, here's how you take your pants off. Please, sweet Jesus, don't let my pants actually fall off. Okay, I'm gonna get in a positioning so that my pants don't actually fall off. Okay? And I know that you're very bright. You probably do not need me to tell you this. But I did hear one person who was like, if my hips were any bigger, I don't think I could get these straps off. And I will be honest with you, this is a failing on my part. I did not know how to tell her this. And that is a failing on my part. Okay, but I'm going to tell you. Okay? Because I was in a space that I was not as familiar with. Here I am in control of this space, and so I can tell you. But in that test sewing group, I did not feel as secure in the space. And that is my fault, that I did not feel the gumption that I could tell her this. But I'll tell you here. And I will include it in video even. So again, here's how you take your pants off, okay? You figure out which strap is the top strap, okay? And then you just bend your neck down. And you take it off this way. And then you do this one. And then it doesn't matter how big your booty is. Because I have a really big booty. And these will literally fall off. Okay, so that's how you take your pants off. Ta-da! So did you try that? Was that helpful? I don't know. Maybe it will be. So that's how like take your pants off. Ding. Okay, so then the next thing we could talk about is the gaping bib. So I talked a little bit about it before, as a problem that happens when you're trying to find off the ready to wear ones that work. But what happened for me here is that I needed to grade between the sizes. So my bottom size was a 34 for the pant. And I used basically a 34 for the pant, and then the waist, because that's like what kind of fits together. But then I graded to a smaller bib size, because no matter what my actual measurement is, my presentation is a little bit narrower. Like I'm deep this way, deep and wide, but deeper than wide. So I'm deeper this way, so my bib just needed to be narrower. Okay, so and all I did was just pick a narrower size, and I used the lines for that. I used the top width for that, and then just connected to the wider size for the bottom of the bib. Okay, and then you need to do the same thing for the facing, obviously. Excuse me. And that will help you. That will keep it from doing this. I mean, when you sit down, it's going to have a little bit, maybe, probably. But, for me, it's made that significantly not a problem. And the nice thing is, too, because there is a seam there, right? If you want to kind of hold it up to yourself and just do a little test, you can always take that seam in just a tiny bit if you need to. There's a lot of flexibility having a seam in that midline. It gives you a little bit of room to kind of wiggle a little bit. And in fact, even if you get your project put together and you're like, a week down the road and you're like, I should have just really made that a smaller size. Guess what? You can take it in a little bit there. Okay, it's going to be a pain because you have flat-felled seams and you have a facing there. But rather than waste your whole project, you can pick that out and take it in. Especially my knitters, you know what that is. If you don't want to waste all that yarn, just pick it out, take it in a little bit. Okay? Okay. You could also just take it in here a little bit. Again, you're going to have to pick some stuff out. You're going to have to take it in, but you'll be okay. Be okay. I'm just saying. But it is much easier if you do it before. Much easier. Much easier if you do those changes before you do those seams. Okay? Okay. So that's the bib. So again, I just braided to a smaller size at the top. Okay. And then ties. I'm going to put in a little clip here about the ties. Okay, so thank you for being patient. I can't get like my head and my waist in the same shot if we don't want to go like the other flippy flap, which is annoying. Okay, so if I were to leave the pattern or leave the design as written with, the ties as written, okay? Then my ties would be quite long, okay? In here. Okay. Now, if I were confident that I were going to leave the bow to be tied like that, I would just trim them off, right? Like no biggie, okay? But I run into this problem where that tie wants to, like the first overhand knot, wants to recess back into the casing. And then, like, if you have to go to the bathroom in a hurry, like, it's hard to pick out of that casing. So, here are solutions, okay? There are potential other solutions that I'm thinking, like, maybe either, okay, so maybe I put a toggle so that would keep it from recessing into the casing. I put grommets on the casing. And then that, of course, like I would put a grommet for each tie. That would keep it from recessing back into the casing. Okay, I think those are my two solutions for leaving it as is. Okay, and then I would just trim down the ties. Here's my other solution, which I kind of like. I can't decide. hence the lack of decision. Okay. But this is also an option if you work around little people, or if you have little people around you who are, or you just have ornery people around you who might tug on your strings. Okay. Bam. Okay. Tie it like an apron. You got your pockets are still free. Gives you a fun little underbust defining line, right? That's cute. That's fun. Okay. You do see, you could put a little loop right here if you wanted it to make sure that you didn't have like a gap. Like, if you didn't want to see the tie here. Okay, you could put a little loop on there. Okay. If you don't like the look of this, like if you want to keep the plain front, you can totally see that my bib is a little bit wrinkled there because I often do that. Okay, then you can tie it inside. Okay, I assume you could do the same thing if you wanted to. You could just put some loops on there. It's just as quick and easy to tie. Okay. Again, you could put a loop here if you wanted to make sure you weren't going to have, a gape. If you wanted to, you could even, lace your ties back through and put a little, offcut out there so that your tie would come back out that way. Like, if you wanted to make sure that your ties wouldn't like do this thing throughout the day. If you're worried about it. But it also kind of pulls your bib in a little bit to kind of highlight the underbust curve, which I think is a little va-va-voom-y for your overalls. Who doesn't want a little va-va-voom for their overalls? Unless you don't, then that's fine. You do you. Okay? So it's just a suggestion. Just play with it. It's up to you. Okay, then another thing that I didn't say in the video, but another thing is, and I don't know this, but I also think you could probably put elastic in that casing. That's off book. That's probably not sanctioned in any way. Don't tell anybody I told you that. But you could probably put elastic in there if you wanted to. But it's set up so that you could. You sew the tab, you sew those ties on either side, so there's a place for you to anchor it, and there's a casing. So, if you want to put elastic in there, you bought the pattern. They're your pants. Put elastic in there. You do you. Okay, and then the final point. The final point that my fat folks have all been waiting for. Let's talk about crotches. Okay, I know that we're supposed to say rise, but it's when it's a problem, it's a crotch. So, okay, let me say that I am not a professional pattern drafter, so feel free to correct me, but please be kind. Again, I did not charge you for this information. But here's the thing, right? You have to have some room in the rise of your overalls. There has to be room between your business and your overalls. Okay? And here's why. When you sit down, unless you want your overalls in your business, there needs to be room there. Okay? Because you have a lot more it's like combining the ease required for a shirt and a pants and sitting and the things and it's from what I I don't know anything, okay, but this is what I just am reasoning, okay, is that it's a percentage ease issue, right? And so if your rise, if you're a slender person, and I'm just making this number up because it's easy, but let's say you're a slender person and the rise is 20 inches, I don't know, okay? And you're a fat person and your rise is 40 inches, making it up, okay? But there's a percentage of stuff happening, right? So you need a percentage of ease when you're sitting, okay? So if you need 10% ease for overalls, if you are a slender person, that means you need 2 inches of ease in that rise. Whereas if you're a fat person, you need 4 inches of ease in your rise, okay? Again, I'm making those numbers up, but that's why you need a slightly baggier crotch in your overall if you're a fat lady than if you're a slim lady, okay? So that can then be compounded by the fact that my size 34 overall, okay, it might need to have room for, my butt being fat or my belly being fat or my belly and my butt being fat. So, there's just a little bit more variability in my fat body, okay? And that's totally fine. It's just the reality, and that's okay. But I have the ability to make those adjustments, and that is what I want, okay? That variability is what allows a lot of designers to say, well, I don't want to make that pattern block because you have to make adjustments anyway because there's so much variability. And that's BS because I can make adjustments. I don't want to have to grade and make adjustments, okay? So, that's why you might experience more issues with that rise if you're a fat person than if you're a thin person, from my reasoning point, okay? Does that make sense? It makes sense in my head. Please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? As a knitter, I am a big advocate of straight ease. Like, I want 3 inches of ease whether I'm 60-inch bust or a 30-inch bust. Okay? And that's because knitting has percentage ease built into it. Okay? That percentage ease is built into the fabric of the garment. Okay? So I don't need percentage ease compounded with percentage ease. Okay? Because then I'm getting a nightmare. Okay? I'm getting percentage ease. In fact, I'm getting like triple percentage ease because I'm getting the percentage ease of the garment. I'm getting the percentage ease of my body measurement, okay, which is then double ease. And then I'm getting that extra percentage ease that's built into the weight of my garment. Okay? So then like it's going off the tracks. Okay? So I am an advocate of a straight ease for a knitted garment. And what I imagine is a knit sewn garment, but I don't know anything about that. But I imagine. Okay? But for a woven garment, I want probably a percentage ease. Or at least some sort of sliding scale of percentage ease, That's what I am imagining. Okay? Again, I am not a professional seamstress nor a pattern designer, but that's what my reasoning is. And that's why I imagine I'm having a lot more room in the business. Because really, to be honest with you, I do use a lot of that room. I mean, like if before when you put on that muslin of that overall, you need to move in it, right? Like you need to not just put it on and be like, this is too much room in my crotch. No, you need to put it on and then you need to do some activities. Like I need you to bend over. I need you to pick some stuff up. I need you to sit down. I need you to sit down in a way that you actually sit down and not sit down like you're sitting down when your boyfriend's mama's watching you sit down. I need you to flop down on the couch. I need you to, like live in them for a little bit, right? Now your fabric might grow a little bit when it's on your body and it's heating up, and so you might get a little bit more room out of them, but just keep that in mind. Okay, you might need a little bit more ease in there than you really realize. Okay. Now, all that said, if you do not like that ease, like if you hate the feeling of that, I totally get you. I 100% get you. Here are some ways that I think you can get around it. Here is the value added portion of this hootenanny. Okay, so here are the ways I think you can get around it. One way is is you could use fabric that has some stretch in it, but you're probably going to need to add, or you probably need to have that. You're going to need vertical stretch, right? Because that's really where that's what I would think. Okay, so I think that's the least effective probably. Here's one that you might not like, but I think it's the most effective, and I know it works. Okay. I bought a pair of overalls from Duluth Trading Company. They're actually short-alls, but you know what I mean. They actually do have, the fabric has some mechanical stretch in it. And it just has horizontal stretch, okay? It does not have any vertical stretch. It's a cotton ripstop. Does it have any nylon in it? It feels like cotton. Let me see. I've looked for this fabric everywhere. If you know where I can find it, please tell me. Oh, it's actually nylon. It is 96% nylon, 4% spandex. It is amazing. I love this fabric. If you know where to find this fabric, please tell me. It does not, it's not like that slickery nylon that you find everywhere. Okay. It feels cottony. It's matte finish and it's thick. I love this fabric, but I don't know where to get it. I love it. Tell me. I'll buy you a coffee. I will actually buy you more than a coffee. I love this fabric. But anyway. But the thing about this Duluth overalls, they have them now for thin people, but they did originally offer them, they have them for straight sizes. They originally offered them in straight sizes and plus sizes. They don't offer them in plus sizes this year. I imagine it's because they all went on clearance. Fat ladies, you didn't buy enough of them. Shame on you. I understand. You didn't want them. It's okay. Also, Duluth, come on. There are a lot of fat men out there. What are they doing? To be a fat man, it's the worst. I mean, you at least get to be on TV, but whatever. Neither here nor there. Okay, but this is the thing. This is what's helpful. That's the easiest solution in the universe. It makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so I know you're saying, whatever, how am I going to get this to match my overall fabric? Okay, you may not be able to. Here are some other solutions. Okay, they actually have the strapping that matches the fabric, and it's literally, they actually have it into the dungaree hardware. Okay. What is this? Is it 1.5 inches or 2 inches? I don't have a measuring thing, and I don't know things. It's only 1.5 inches, right? Whatever. It's this wide. So, if you can't, if you don't like the look of this, I get it. I feel you. And in fact, the Otis, it doesn't have exposed hardware. It doesn't have hardware. Okay? But you do have some options, okay? In the Otis, you could put elastic on like where the strap meets the back. Strap actually kind of joins almost under your arm, or at least it does on my size and in the way I'm configured. It's slightly to the back of your arm, but it's not a noticeable place. So one thing you could do is have the elastic there. You could have the elastic show if it's a relatively close color match, or if it's a dark or a low contrast. Or if it were me, what I might do is have the elastic sewn in. There's a facing there, and you could essentially have the elastic sewn. You know what? I'm going to just take off my pants and show you. Okay, so now I'm sitting in front of my glass window door, and I'm not wearing pants, so the UPS man will come in 37 seconds. Okay, so here's my thought. This is, okay, by the way, can we check out this sexy pocket finishing? So this is where the strap joins, right? Okay. My thinking is, okay, you don't join your strap here. Okay. You would have your strap free floating essentially. You would sew your elastic into your strap. Okay. So you'd have like your strap here. You'd you would sew the elastic into the bottom of the strap. So like you'd have your elastic kind of like, you'd slide it up in there, fit it up in there. You'd sew the bottom of the strap closed to keep your elastic in it, right? So now you just have like a strap, it's got elastic coming out the bottom, right? Okay. So then you just put your strap, so it's going to look like this from the outside, right? You just put your strap up there so that the bottom is like flush. So it just looks like this when there's no stretch applied, right? And then you would kind of just tack or sew your elastic right there, right? So you'd have enough elastic to go. You would just sew it right there because you've got a seam right here. You would never notice it. You would just sew it down so that it's right there, right? You just top sew it right over that. Nobody's ever going to see it. Give it a couple lines so it's nice and secure. If you wanted to, you could... No, you wouldn't do that because you wouldn't get, that would not give you enough room to stretch, right? But just give it a couple lines there, you know. Nobody's going to see it. It's going to be fine. Then you've got a nice little extra bit of elastic there that when you sit, right, it's going to give you extra room. Now, if your elastic is like like you cannot find any elastic, it's like you're going to only find white elastic. It's bright as the driven snow and your overalls are black and you're like, this is going to be a nightmare. Well, then you just cut yourself a slightly longer strap, or again, your strap might be longer than you need it because I had extra strap more than I needed. But you might just give yourself a little extra strap and you just like have yourself essentially a facing like around your strap, like an extra case, you know? So you just have a little casing, a little sausage casing around your elastic and you just... You just leave that around there, and then the only problem with that is that it might kind of rumple up around there. But like sometimes life's not perfect. It's back there, nobody's gonna see it. It's fine. Then you will have a slimmer fit in the of your pants, and you won't have any chafing, and it'll be lovely for you. Don't make it too close, because then you're gonna have in your pants, and then you have a different problem altogether. But right? You could theoretically also do that in the front, but there's not a great place to anchor it here. I mean, you do sew your facings in, but that's going to pull, and I think that's going to pucker and look weird, so I would not put anything there. But yeah, that's my thought. I think that'd be a great place to work it in if you do want a closer fit in the rise of your pants, and you want to avoid if you have chafing issues or anything like that. Or if you just want a closer fit, if you're wanting like a dressier overall. I don't know, y'all are fancy sometimes, I guess. Maybe. Yeah, I don't got places to go. Whatever. But that's my thought. If it works out for you, you should totally let me know. I think I might try it. I mean, I might just try it for experiment's sakes because, heck, why not, right? Actually, I'm definitely going to be trying it for experiment's sake because I definitely ordered very wide elastic from Taiwan. Because I just want to know what it's like. I think it'd be cool. And if nothing else, it's just like it's like comfortable fit thing for your overalls to have that there. Because it's a nice thing. And it's like great when you're gardening and stuff like that because you can just have all sorts. Oh no, that's not the best man. Okay. I was like, I told you he's coming. But so yeah, those are my thoughts of the Otis overalls. I think it's a great pattern. I hope you enjoy it. If you don't make the Otis, I hope you make some overalls for yourself. And I hope you enjoy them. I hope that you can customize something for your perfect self, for the body that you're living in. And I hope that your clothes can honor that body that's carrying you through this world at this very moment. I hope you can clothe it and take care of it. I'll talk to you next time.